What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to basketball. I know we got the NBA Finals going on right now, but that doesn't mean that there aren't a bunch of other NBA things going on in the background, and one of those things is the NBA Draft. We've already been through the Combine, and now we got teams going through the individual workouts with all the guys, so there's a big evaluation phase going on. And just recently, as some of you guys know, I was hired by an NBA team to help them throughout their offseason, so I've been a part of a lot of this process, and I continue to be a part of a lot of this process. So I'm actually really curious to see some of this in action. I've seen some of these guys in action now, and I'm curious to get my thoughts about it. But hey, as always, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment. I've responded to every single comment on my YouTube channel up to this point, and I intend to keep on doing so, even if you guys do have bad grammar for the most part and just kind of say nonsense. But you know what? It's fun to have the conversations regardless, and I genuinely mean that. But alrighty, Bleacher Report's most recent NBA mock draft. I did get some comments on like the last one of these. They're like, "Why do you do Bleacher Report so much?" I'm like, man, I don't have time to come up with my own mock draft here, there, and everywhere. I just like to hear the discourse that's going on. It gives me talking points and everything. But who's going to be at number one this week? Is it going to be Reece Sachet or is it going to be Sarr? They like to flip-flop it, and we're back to Reece Sachet for the Atlanta Hawks. So I do know Atlanta was watching all his playoff games and everything. For those of you that don't know, Reece Sachet put on quite the show for a lot of his playoff games. If you guys are like new to the videos, the comparison for him a lot of times, at least in my books, is Michael Porter Jr., but like a more athletic one. I know he went cold from three for a little bit towards the end of his season. He was scorching hot to start the season, and I believe he's finishing the season at like 40%, so that tells you like how scorching hot versus like how cold he was and everything. But he's young. We did a whole video breaking down Reece Sachet, and I think he's a very, very interesting product that you could draft this year. If he ended up going first, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. It's not who I would put number one on my board. I've got Sarr number one personally, and honestly, like I see the prospects very close. Like I don't think there's a huge differentiation in like how much potential they have or anything like that. So the reason I put Sarr above is solely based on the fact that it's harder to find 7-footers. Like that's solely like why I put him above Reece Sachet. I think they are that close, and I think they both are valuable guys that could come in and start and be contributing players in the NBA right away, especially with Reece Sachet. It's not just the shooting, it's the athleticism, it's the defensive skills. Like he just seems like he has a really good feel for the game. Obviously with his size and everything at 6'8", 204, I feel good about the product. One of the things we noticed at times is that maybe not the most athletic in spurts, but I think it's more so due to the fact that he's growing into his body. We forget how young these guys are, and I've worked with enough guys playing basketball at this age to know or to be able to see the difference as to when it's unathleticism versus you're still growing, and I think he's just still growing a little bit, which is good because he's already showing some really athletic things. So I think once you kind of let him grow and mature a little bit, you're gonna have a really good basketball player in your hands. What do I think about the fit with Atlanta? I'd find it hard to believe that they don't take Sarr personally. I don't know. I'd find that hard to believe, but I know Atlanta's doing their homework on him, so I guess we'll see at the end of the day. So this one for the Wizards is going to be Sarr. I think the Wizards would be thrilled to get Sarr. They've definitely got more of a positional need at center at this point, because who are they playing at center at this point? Is it Vukacic? I think that's how you say his name, the young guy. I think he was a second-round pick for them this last year. They played at like the end of the season. Was actually pretty solid, so he's an interesting player to watch going into next year. But Alex Sarr is definitely the number 2 pick if this is the case. I don't see him going anywhere past Washington. Compare him to Jaren Jackson Jr., but maybe like a little bit better defensive instincts, not as good of a shooter. I know Jaren Jackson Jr. is falling behind in his shooting a little bit from where he started his career. But some of the things we like about Alex Sarr is not just like, hey, he's athletic, he can go up and block shots, and the high motor is what really gets me. Like when you have a big that's that willing to go out and guard people on the perimeter, he's excited about it, like he's jumping, he's yelling, he's screaming, he's doing all this stuff, like that's really cool. The defensive instincts are really cool too. You see him, like they'll switch him on to perimeter guys out in the NBL, which is the Australian Basketball League, and then he'll literally rotate down from the top of the key to go block shots, which is crazy. Like he switches directions with his feet really well, so he can be in pick and roll coverages and still block shots. I think he's really, really interesting. There's definitely some star potential there, and this whole class we struggle to see star potential. And like I'm not saying that like I see Alex Sarr becoming an absolute like stud in the NBA, but I think he's going to be a really good player. I think if you draft him, your defense is instantly going to get a ton better. I think you're going to get a starting center for years to come out of him, and if he develops a nice 3-point shot eventually and he keeps learning the game, then yeah, he could be a really good basketball player. So I think Washington would be very lucky to end up with Sarr. Next up, Houston Rockets, Reed Sheppard. All right, so this is a good time for me to put out my disclaimer. If I say negative things about players, it's because I'm reporting on these guys. It's my job to say the things I do or don't like about them. I'm not just going to trash Reed Sheppard here. I have a lot of people tell me that, oh, you just hate on Reed Sheppard or whatever. No, not the case. The reason that I don't really care about this pick very much right now is because I'm pretty sure the Houston Rockets are going to trade out of this pick. It just doesn't make sense for them to hold it. And Donovan Clingan, somebody is going to go up to go get Donovan Clingan. Donovan Clingan's who I have as number 3 on my big board. And people have asked me, they're like, if he went 1, what would you think? And I'm like, I honestly wouldn't hate it. Like, I'm not going to bat an eye at it. I'm going to be like, okay, that's what they wanted. They liked him more. I'm not surprised at all. That's how close I think like Sarr, Risachet, and Clingan are. Somebody's going to want to trade with Houston to get it. They don't need any more young prospects or anything like that. But talking about Reed Sheppard, I have concerns about the defense. You guys have heard me say that before. Like, I know the steal percentage and the block percentage, like that stuff those stats don't translate well to the NBA. It just really doesn't with college basketball. It's different. It's so much slower. I worry when you have this type of size and like weight and frame out on the perimeter. As soon as balls start swinging, that's when you really start to see the defense kind of become a struggle for people, because if you get a little bit of momentum coming at this guy, he's not going to be able to stop you. He's not going to be able to close you out or anything very well. So that's a bit of a concern to me. I don't know if he's a good enough ball handler to actually play point guard. I see him as kind of a smaller Grayson Allen, because don't get me wrong, he shoots the shit out of the basketball. It's crazy what he can do with or without the basketball. Really, really impressive. And he's got some sneaky athleticism. They're like, oh, he can jump this high and he can do all that and everything. And I'm like, but is he going to be asked to use that athleticism? Like, I don't personally think so. So I don't buy into it too much. Now, if he develops into like a smaller Kirk Heinrich or something like that, then that could be kind of interesting, right? Where he is just more of a shooter and he can play off ball a little bit. If he ever becomes like quick enough to really like guard point guards, I think that could be interesting. But it's just like, not that I like completely hate on Reed Sheppard. I'm just not taking him with like the 3rd overall pick, like a guy like that, just because like I think like a Kirk Heinrich is kind of his ceiling, and I'd rather just spend like an 8th or 9th pick on him or something like that. So that's my thoughts on it. All right, next up. Oh shit, they are switching it up on us. The San Antonio Spurs, Matas Buzelis. Y'all just had him at 11. Oh no, like let's not do this. So I've seen the rumors on like social media and stuff that he's going to go higher and that the Spurs like him and everything. I don't know. I think that's all kind of smoke and mirrors personally, just from stuff that I hear and see. But, you know, you guys can take my word versus other people's words however you want to. I'm not very big on Buzelis, and that's just because I don't see any of the skills he has really translating to the NBA. Like, I think he's an okay athlete for his position. Like, I think it's somewhat interesting. I'm concerned about his frame. I don't think he grows into like a much bigger player than really who he is currently, which is kind of small and skinny. So I worry about him defensively a little bit. I think his handle's pretty weak, honestly, and he didn't shoot the ball well, even though his form suggests he should. And that's kind of the archetype player that he is. So I think at best he becomes just kind of like a stretch 4 that can sometimes cut towards the hoop and stuff like that. But otherwise, like, I'm not giving this guy the basketball and letting him run like offense or something like that. I just don't think that's in the cards at all. So I think the Spurs are more so going to go, if they keep all these picks, I think that, and I'm guessing they will. I think that they're going to look at this class and be like, we might not get a huge difference maker, so let's just go with culture more than anything, and guys that we know are going to fit like within our organization, and we'll just figure it out from there. So I like a Stephon Castle here with that pick, and I just think Stephon Castle's a better player and much more worth trying to develop. So that's just my thoughts on it. Next up, Donovan Clingan. There he is. There's the boy. So Detroit Pistons ending up with Clingan. I wouldn't be mad at this. So I'm actually responding to comments mostly today from the Detroit Pistons ideal offseason. I've seen a lot of people being like, oh, I want to trade Jalen Duren. I don't like Jalen Duren or whatever. And it's mostly because of his defensive energy and everything. And I mean, I could do a whole video on it, but I'm like, look, with all the things that happened at the University of Memphis behind the scenes, you guys don't even want to know what's going on at that school or whatever. But with all that stuff going on, and then you got like him coming into Detroit, where it's just you just lose every day. You're getting ridiculed by the other teams all the time. The team's constantly trading for people younger than you, or like that are also young and playing your position. Your role's changing all the time. So that's hard for a 20-year-old man. I'm like, Duren's got a lot of ability. If Clingan's available and you can then trade Duren, like, you're probably going to get a decent amount for Jalen Duren at the end of the day. So I wouldn't fault them at all for doing this, because I don't know who else they're picking with this. I also think it makes sense for Detroit to trade out of this pick. I don't think they need any more projects or anything. The good thing about Clingan is he can come in and he can play right away, and I think he's going to be a great contributor. I think he'll instantly make your defense much, much better. I think he'll be a starting center in this NBA from day one. So I could totally understand that if you just think, hey, he's just a better prospect than Duren, and I can't necessarily fault you for that. I think Duren might have a higher ceiling. Maybe it's close, but I wouldn't be mad if they did that and then moved on from him to collect some other assets somewhere else. I'm gonna assume this is, yep, that's what I kind of figured. The Charlotte Hornets, Stephon Castle. So here's what I keep saying about Stephon Castle. Stephon Castle would be the #1 player in this class if he even had a decent jump shot, because he can do just about everything else. He can defend really well, he can pass, he can play without the basketball, right? Really smart. Everybody that's gotten a chance to interview him says he's a great kid. I personally haven't met him or anything, but my people tell me he's awesome. Coming out of UConn, that's no surprise either. I know that his camp doesn't want him to end up in Charlotte. And we could go into the reasons why about that. I've talked about them in other videos. If you guys want answers to those, leave it in the comments and I'll talk about it some more, but I don't want to beat a dead horse at this point, or a dead bee in this case. But Stephon Castle, really interesting player. I think if he was available for the Charlotte Hornets, like, I'd still look at taking him. I think he could be a really valuable add to the team. I think he could slide in really well at the 2. You could have a really big lineup that could play some decent defense. He can be the secondary ball handler on the team, because we know he wants to be a ball handler, because Brandon Miller really doesn't need the ball to be successful. Like, a lot of his buckets come from off ball, and he had to do some on ball stuff this year, but that's never how he's wanted to play. So I could see this working out pretty well for Charlotte. I think this would be a great addition to their young core, provided LaMelo Ball gets healthy at some point. By the way, I saw a video of LaMelo Ball. He's just like riding go-karts on rooftops and everything in just like the middle of the day. I'm like, that's somebody's franchise player, man. I don't know. And like, he can do whatever the hell you want at the end of the day. I don't care. It's just like, he just seems like such a goofy individual, but whatever. Next up, yeah, I feel like this pick is pretty locked in at this point. I'd be surprised if this didn't happen, honestly. The Portland Trailblazers taking Dalton Connect. Something that I keep kind of harping on with these mock drafts is that the Portland Trailblazers are doing something, at least in their first year with Scoot Henderson, that I hate when organizations do. I hate when organizations take guys with all this star potential in the world, like Scoot Henderson does, super, super talented prospect, and they bring them in their rookie year and they just put such a nonsense team around them. Like, I'm not saying the dudes on the Trailblazers are like bad players, but like, you couldn't try to put a much worse team for Scoot Henderson around him this year. A bunch of other guys that want the basketball and need the basketball to operate. A center that only operates like from the nail and everything. That just doesn't make any sense. Jeremy Grant's not really the best guy to play off of with him either. And what did we discover kind of like halfway through the season is that, Scoot Henderson's really, really good at playing in the pick and roll, especially if he has a run, jump, and dunk guy. And then, as they started to figure that out, like the last 15 games of the season, all of a sudden he's averaging 18, 19 points and shooting like 40% from 3 and getting out in transition because you unlocked some parts of his game and you started to put the right guys on the court with him. Right now, like, DeAndre Ayton's a talented player and everything, but he's in the way, so that's a whole thing. But you bring in a guy like Dalton Connect, that's a complementary piece. Dalton Connect doesn't need the basketball, he spaces the floor, he can play the wing, hopefully becomes a good defender. Wasn't the best college defender, but he was asked to do so much offensively. Hopefully with a lighter load, he can kind of focus energy in some other places. He's got the length and athleticism to do so I like him a lot. I think he can come in and play for them right away, so I'd be pretty happy if that's who they got with this pick. Next up, interesting. The San Antonio Spurs picking Devin Carter. So if you guys have been watching these videos, I've been saying for a couple weeks now, I'm like, as we get closer and closer to this draft, the older dudes in this class are going to keep on going up because all the teams are going to get all these guys in for their workouts, and they're going to see that these younger guys have quite a bit of bust potential. That's why this class isn't looked at very well, right? They're going to be like, dang, these guys aren't really all that great. We're not even swinging for much here, So maybe we should just take some of the older guys so we can at least get somebody that can be a contributor to us right away. They'll be a solid basketball player. We get something out of the draft, right? And that's what I think you're getting out of Devin Carter. You're getting a really good defender, a guy that can see the court pretty well, decent, good enough shooter at this point in his college career, was really able to create and do a lot of things. He's got some solid size on him. So the Spurs taking a point guard in here, because I'm personally just not that big on Sheppard, Dillingham, Topic worries me, and I'm sure Topic will come up at some point in this. Who knows where now, but and I don't know where to pick Topic, so I'm not going to ridicule wherever he gets picked necessarily, but Devin Carter's probably not a bad pick, man. Let's just kind of see what happens. He's a guy that thrives in a real structured system. put him in San Antonio. Just a nice game manager with Wemby. Might be all you need. I don't mind that pick at all. Oh, it's also worth noting, the word on the street is that he got a lottery guarantee. I'm not surprised by that at all. Like, I could totally see that some team guaranteed him a spot and just said, yeah, just stop doing the workouts, dude. You're fine. I'm willing to bet it's Sacramento. I can't confirm or deny if that's true, but that's my bet. Memphis Grizzlies, Ron Holland. Interesting. Who else is on the board? Cody Williams is probably the only other pick here that makes some sense. So, I mean, fair enough. Yeah, like, here's the thing with Ron Holland, right? Like, talented, like you couldn't believe, right? You look at him play and look at him just move, and you're like, wow, this is a really good basketball player. I call him the right-handed RJ Barrett. Like, that's a good comparison for him. The problem is his basketball IQ is incredibly low, and his decision-making skills are very, very poor right now. He's going to need a place that he can, like, truly develop. Can Memphis do that? Yeah, possibly. I don't see why not. They've got some nice vets on the team and a good coach, and they've already got some star players that are going to take a lot of the load out of his hands, and they need a wing. So, yeah, no, I don't hate that pick whatsoever. I just think it's going to take time for him to figure it out, especially like in transition and things like that. Like you can tell where he's going to go on the court from like half court, and that's hard to telegraph, but he really does. As far as like his shooting and everything, it's not very good either, but at the end of the day, man, incredible athletic prospect, and with the right team, they could unlock something really cool with him, so hopefully the Memphis Grizzlies can do that. Next up, Utah Jazz, Rob Dillingham. I don't think that pick makes a ton of sense considering they have Keontae George, and I feel like developing like two of these kind of dudes doesn't make a ton of sense at once, so I think a Cody Williams makes a little bit more sense here. I think Ron Holland would actually be perfect if he ended up here in Utah, but that's just my perspective on it. Rob Dillingham is a very, very small guy, and that's a defensive concern for sure. Like 6'1", 164, man, he's light. Like, I've gotten to see him in person now. He's light. He's small, he's light, and that's okay. Like, offensively, you can make some stuff work with that. Like, I think you might struggle getting to the rim and everything. And, let me say some positive things about Rob Dillingham first. We see with him, when we watch him play, we're like, I can see how this guy can become a good basketball player. I can really see it, because he's got a lot of the skills needed to do so. Some of the decision-making worries me, though. The hot and cold shooting kind of worries me. His frame, I'm like, I don't know who I'd be comfortable with you guarding in the NBA, because you don't look like you're going to get a ton bigger. So you're going to have to be a really, really good offensive player to warrant being on the court. So I worry about him as a prospect in that sense, because you got to be able to guard somebody, man. You just do. And like, you could tell me he's going to be as scrappy with people as possible, but here's the thing, man. At the end of the day, if me and him are in transition, and given I was a college level point guard or whatever, and I'm big for that, I'm 6'5" or whatever, I'm like, but one bump and he's going over, I've got 60 pounds on him, literally. So, well, actually, no, I weighed in today, I've got 50. I'm shedding a little bit. I'm shedding for wedding season. You feel me? But, yeah, so that's just a concern of mine with him, but I can see how he could become a good point guard. I think it's going to be a tough road for him. So, and I just don't like the fit of Utah for him. Utah's good at developing people, though, so I'll give him that. So maybe they could unlock it. Next up, my Chicago Bulls taking Nikola Topic. Oh, I said I wasn't going to criticize where he was going to go. Nikola Topic isn't exactly isn't exactly who I want the Chicago Bulls to take. Maybe I'd want them to take Cody Williams. Knowing us, though, we wouldn't be able to develop him well whatsoever, but that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about Nikola Topic. So obviously we learned what the injury was at this point. We learned that he has a partially torn ACL. I've seen people saying things like, oh, he's out for the season. Guys, just read the articles, for Christ's sake. Like, he has to come to the United States. Nobody's actually like evaluated it yet. Like, the U.S. doctors are going to determine how much it is, like how long he's going to be out. We don't know. It could be the full year. It's a partially torn ACL. I've seen a lot of different things happen with that. Yeah, he's an interesting prospect to start out with. Mystery man, right? In a little bit we saw of him kind of in, like, we'll call it the B League of the Euro League. Really, really good passer, relentless in attacking the hoop, good finisher, really good size, smart, right? Good defender, can't really shoot. Then he got up into the pros, played like a couple games, got hurt, came back, played like a game and a half, got hurt again, and that was the ACL. And so he's kind of a mystery man. We don't know much about him. And the little bit I've seen, his movements are really weird. Like, they really throw me off. He's very herky-jerky, and I guess that's, some people call it like being shifty. I'm like, it looks clunky to me when I watch it personally, but is what it is. He's clearly very smart, and he sees the floor well, and he's big and strong, and that's awesome. He's got an NBA body outside of his knee right now, but the shooting form's pretty gross at the moment, so I don't know, man. I don't know what to do with this. If the Bulls took him, it's like, oh, what are the Bulls going to do next year? I just feel like next year for the Bulls is just such a wash, them running it back with that team again. I'm a Bulls fan, by the way, so if you guys couldn't tell. But yeah, like, I guess if anyone could afford to sit him, they've got like 5 other point guards on the roster, so fair enough. But yeah, no, I have no idea where Topic is going to get drafted, so maybe it's the Bulls. Next up, Oklahoma City Thunder, Tijan Saloon. Thank you to you guys who've been helping me like pronounce all these names and everything. That's really, really awesome. This is where I think he should end up. If Saloon is one of those guys that has a high ceiling in this class. There's not many of those guys. Really big, really strong, has shown points where he can be a good shooter, where he can put the ball on the floor at like, because what do they list him at? 6'9", 212 already, is like a really young 18-year-old dude. Like, he looks like he's going to fill out to be really, really big. Reminds me of like a Giannis or something like that, his body type, where it's like, yeah, no, you could fill this body out like really, really well. And with the skills he already has, I'm like, man, this guy could be a really, really good basketball player. You put him on OKC, who's been developing all this other young talent. Makes a ton of sense to me. They could use a power forward with a little bit of size. Works for me, right? I think he's a really, really interesting prospect. I think if you throw him here, it could pay a lot of dividends. Next up, the Sacramento Kings taking Cody Williams. So in a lot of these mock drafts, it's been Devin Carter ending up there, and now with Devin Carter moving up in the class a little bit, I'm not surprised to see Cody Williams go here. I think this is probably one of the lower spots that he would fall. Cody Williams, kind of a potential guy as well. Not quite as athletic as you'd like to see him. I think his finishing moves are pretty subpar right now. He's got good shooting for him. He obviously sees the court really well. Like I said, I'd like to see a little bit more explosiveness. He doesn't look like Risa Shea in his lack of explosiveness. It just looks like he's not that explosive, so that's a little bit worrisome to me. He's kind of fallen down my big board a little bit personally, but I think he's interesting enough to develop, and the Kings need a wing on their team, so I could totally see this being a thing. I think he'd be really good and interesting in a Sabonis hub offense because he does see the floor well, so I could be very interested and very convinced in saying that he could have a good career in Sacramento, but you guys let me know what you think. All right, end of the lottery. Ooh, Keyshawn George makes an appearance. Interesting. So I've watched a little bit of Keyshawn George in person now. Do they compare him to Delano Banton? Yeah, that's who everybody compares him to, because what are we measuring in at? 6'7"? Yep, that's what I thought. 6'7", 200 pounds, kind of a ball handler. I don't really like calling him a ball handler. Like, he's got some basic moves that he does, because he has the ball a lot, don't get me wrong, but it's not like he's like attacking and creating necessarily. Like, he's mostly just creating space for himself to get his 3-point shot off. Because like, here's the thing, 6'7", like shooting guard / point guard, is that what you want to call him? Shooting guard, small forward. Okay, well, he handled the ball a lot, and so that's why I wanted to call him a point guard. But shot 40% from 3 this year on some difficult shots too, mind you. Like, they're all kind of created by him, and even some like that weren't. Like, you can tell he's ready for the ball. He's ready for the ball, right? Like, give me this basketball, catch, shoot. It's kind of weird form to me. It looks like his back hurts a little bit. I kind of wanted to ask him that, honestly. I'm like, do you have like back problems or something like that? And you wouldn't answer that question anyway. But like, just the way he shoots it makes me feel like he's got like lower back hip problems or something. It's just something I've noticed before in other prospects, so I was curious if I was astute in my observations in that sense. But no, really, really interesting player here. Where would he end up here? The Portland Trailblazers. In this one, who did they already take with this pick? Oh, they would have taken Connect, right? So you're just adding other guys that could be floor spacers and stuff and secondary ball handlers around Scoot. I can support that. That makes total sense to me. Add some more wings, guys that would make sense to have next to a Scoot Henderson. I can support that. Are there guys that maybe I would take before him? Yeah, potentially. Like, I don't think it'd be out of the realm of possibilities to go get like a Kel-El Ware here. And I see so many people being like, I want Kel-El Ware on my team. And I'm just responding at this point being like, you could literally say Kel-El Ware's going anywhere. And I'll be like, that's a good fit. That's a good fit. 7-footer that can run, jump, dunk, and block some shots and shoot a little bit. Like, yeah, no, sounds good. It's hard to find 7-footers, but no, Keyshawn George here would be kind of interesting. That'd be cool if he slipped his way into the lottery. Okay, but now that we're done with the lottery, basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around, see if there's any other interesting guys that I really want to talk about. I'm not going to like hate on any dudes at this point, just guys that I find interesting. So yeah, let's do that. Ooh, here's where Kel'el Ware is going. The Lakers in this one. I mean, like I said, I can see him going just about anywhere. Kel'el Ware is interesting, and this draft class is interesting in general because there's quite a few 7-footers in this class that, and mind you, 7-footers are hard to find. So in general, when there's that kind of talent available, like you should evaluate it, right? Because there's just not that many opportunities to go get guys like that. But there's a bunch of guys out here that you can get as like cheap backup centers and stuff like that, or guys that you can develop that should be solid role players for you right away, especially because the center market is really dry in the NBA right now, and that's just kind of how it runs sometimes. But Kel'el Ware, I think he's got potential to become a starter in the NBA. Like, I truly do think that. I like his game a lot. I think it will take a little bit of time and adjustment, but I think he could get there. So, is it with the Lakers? I don't necessarily know if that's the best place to end up for the development of that. They haven't shown a great history of trying to develop their young players, but, you know, it is what it is. And I'm talking as of late, right? Obviously, there's been many instances of that happening in the duration of the Lakers, but as of late, that hasn't been a consistent thing. But anyway, no, I like Kel'el Ware a lot, and if he got drafted by the Lakers, I'd be like, yeah, I could see why they want him. Here's another one of these dudes, Yves Missy. You guys have to keep telling me how to say his name. I've seen a couple different pronunciations of Yves, however you want to say it. Again, another 7-footer, run, jump, dunk, block shots. Doesn't do much else for that, but should do this very well, kind of Clint Capella-esque. Pelicans could use a little bit of size at center and someone that can run, jump, and dunk. Would love to see him end up there. Think it makes a ton of sense. Ooh, Ryan Dunn has moved up into the first round here. That doesn't honestly surprise me because Ryan Dunn was one of my favorite guys that was kind of in the second round. If you guys have been watching my ideal offseason, you'll notice that there's like probably 3 or 4 second round dudes that I really lock in on, and that's because those are the dudes I think are the best out of the second round. And I think Ryan Dunn's really interesting. I think having his size, what is he, 6'8"? Oh, 6'6"? I could have sworn he measured higher. I don't know. Sometimes Bleacher Report puts weird things in there, but you guys let me know if I'm wrong. But his ability to play without the basketball is really good, especially because he's not a good shooter, like at all. So he's really, really smart without the basketball. So if you throw him on a team like the New York Knicks, he falls into an OG Anunoby type role where he's like, hey, I can stand in the corner, and then as soon as Brunson gets going or DiVincenzo like cuts to the hoop and he gets a pass, I can cut at the same time. He's big, strong, and athletic and can go finish over people, and he's a really, really good defender. So I like him as a prospect. Like, I'm not saying he's going to be a superstar by any means, but I wouldn't be mad if a team swung on him with a first-round pick, and I think the Knicks would be a good team to take him in. Ooh, Tyler Smith to the Wizards. Interesting. So they ended up with Sarr in this one, so they'd also get Tyler Smith. Yeah, I've seen Tyler Smith dropping down the boards. I'm still remaining high on him. I think he's another one of these dudes that actually has like a higher ceiling in this class. And that's because we've seen him put the ball on the floor a little bit. Like, there's not a ton of film of it, but in the little bit I see, I'm like, ooh, that looks good. Like, that's interesting. I wish we could have tried to explore that a little bit more throughout the season. His shooting was good during the season. It wasn't very good in the combine. I personally just don't give a shit about that stuff. I just kind of don't at the end of the day. But it's the combine. I mean, you go cold sometimes and everybody's watching you. It's hard. Like, I don't really take much into account with like all that stuff, but neither here nor there. I think he's a really interesting prospect. He's big, he's strong, he looks like he can do a lot of things. He's got an NBA body. I think he could develop into a really interesting power forward, but I think he's got potential to be a small forward actually, which at his size would be really, really valuable. Throwing him on the Wizards, that'd be scary. They're not very good at developing their talent or anything. Sorry, Washington Wizards fans, it's true. You guys are going to comment, and I'm going to timestamp it with you guys being like, oh, we have a better front office now and everything. And it's like, your front office hasn't done jack shit yet. We have no idea. Like, the Wizards never do good with this stuff. So, and I know a couple players on the Wizards very well, so I could tell you exactly how it goes if you want. But it's a whole thing. I like Tyler Smith, so hopefully he gets a chance to develop in a good organization. Ooh, Pacome Dadiet. I think that's how you say it. This is another one of those second round dudes that I kept saying. I'm like, I like this guy again, a little bit higher ceiling. What is he measuring in? It's 6'9", 6'8". Everybody's shrinking. This is how the scouting process always goes. But really, really good shooter already. Has shown the ability to put the ball on the floor a little bit. Has good defensive instincts right now. Probably going to take a little bit, but there's a little bit of a higher ceiling there. This could be one of those guys that's a late first round pick, and then all of a sudden is a really good role player in the NBA for years to come. It could be just one of these French dudes that, like all these French dudes coming in, just look like they have a ton of potential and a ton of smarts on them. So him going to the Utah Jazz here, I would like that, man. They're really good at developing their stuff there, so I could see Pacome working out. 32, another Utah Jazz pick, Baylor Shireman. You guys have heard me talk about Baylor Shireman a little bit. I've got a ton of experience with Baylor Shireman personally throughout my career. Elite shooter, can go get rebounds, just a good pro, plays solid defense. I picture him as like a taller John Conchar, and that's funny because they both played in the Summit League at one point, but very, very good basketball players. I think that they can come in and probably contribute right away as like a 9th, 10th man if you really needed him to. I think he'll be a pro for a while just because he is that smart and he's good enough at all the aspects of the game. So I really like Baylor Shireman, and I think him going to Utah would make a ton of sense. I'll again just put this out there. We're not going to talk about any of the legal stuff or whatever in terms of talent and ability goes. Terrence Shannon Jr. is a top 10 on my big board, but that doesn't mean you should take him there, so just work with that as you will. Jonathan Mogbo, a guy that I found really, really interesting at the Combine. Very unique archetype of player, small power forward / center that can handle the ball like surprisingly decent. Extremely good athlete and just huge motor, like just big, buff, strong Kenneth Faried essentially. Not sure what his role is in the NBA, but I kind of just want to put him on a team. I just want to watch him in camp and see what happens more. So yeah, I find him interesting. Another Nikola Jurizic. I don't know exactly. The name's been getting a little bit of buzz recently because of some of the EuroLeague stuff he's been doing. I did watch some of it. Interesting player at the very least. I'm not sure he's going to stick in this draft class. He might be a next year type of guy, but I found him interesting enough to mention it to you guys. I'm going to need to watch a lot more film on him, and I promise you I will, but interesting enough. 55, Bronny James still going to the Lakers. I'm still going to give my little spiel here. If you guys listen to it already, it's not going to be any different, so you can just skip ahead if you really need to, or stay for my watch time or whatever you need to do. I think Bronny James can be a good NBA player. I'm not saying it's going to happen right away or whatever. I just think he's got the body type, the athleticism, the game knowledge and everything, the perception of everything. I'm not saying he's going to be a star, but I think you could get a Tyus or Trey Jones out of him. Like, I don't see why you couldn't, like a more athletic one. So I think Bronny James could be a really nice like backup point guard in the NBA going forward. So if I had a late to mid second round pick, I'd think about taking him. Like, I'm just being serious. I've watched a lot of film on him, and I'm not just saying that because of the name or the hype or anything, but I think there's a lot of talent here. Is anybody else going to be interesting to me? Nope, doesn't look like it. Well, that's another NBA mock draft down, y'all. You guys let me know what you think and everything. This is obviously a weird class. Wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of trades within the top of it. And you guys just prepare yourself, too, because, like, just because like one of these top 3 picks is going like that, like it doesn't mean that it's worth a ton right now. Teams know how much this stuff is worth. Like, and I should probably rephrase. Like, I think like the top 3 is going to be interesting because I do think somebody's going to move up to get Klingon. Like, I just believe that in my heart. I think as soon as people see him in action, they're just going to be like, oh wow, yeah, no, that's an NBA player right there. So, I'll say anything after like 3 is going to be not that hard to get. So just prepare yourselves for that. But hey, you guys let me know in the comments what you think. I know you guys will. Try to have some proper grammar in there. We're just trying to have an educated comment section at the end of the day. Make sure you guys put some spaces after your periods and everything. I'm a bit of a grammar Nazi, man. I used to be on the debate team and everything like that, so I like organization. But anyway, that's just me. Thanks so much for watching as always, y'all. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.